Welcome back to Veteran Revivals. I'm Art, your veteran idiot. This here is Scrappy, our GT40 build Foxbody with Holley Terminator X and 410 gears, T5 World Class, BBK shorty headers, BBK 70mm throttle body, currently 19-pound 4-hole injectors, and it's got roller rockers and a B-cam. There we go. I think that's all of it. Rebuilt it from a stolen pile of junk, but now it is a ripper, but we don't have exact times on it. And then in comes the draggy. So today's going to be kind of a fun day. We got this draggy, so we can start comparing things, and you guys can follow along with that as well if you have the draggy app. You can look up Veteran Revivals, you see my garage in there, and see times. I've only got a couple in here, and it's going to be for this one. We'll start adding Earl and a whole bunch of other ones once we start getting into it. And you guys can race with those times or do whatever you want with them. Compare yourself to Scrappy if you like. Probably not too hard to beat, but can't beat the fun that's in the car. We're going to compare those times, and then we are going to jump into 24-pound injectors, because if you didn't see on the last couple episodes, our injectors are maxed out. They go up to 110, 115% duty cycle at the top end. It may be fuel pressure, so we've got a couple things going on. I picked up a fuel pressure sensor from Holley. We're going to throw that on there, tie it into the Terminator X. That way we can see exactly where our fuel pressure is, if it's dropping off and causing the duty cycle to go up, or if it's staying even and the duty cycle is just maxing out on those 19-pound injectors. Either way, got some 24-pound 4-hole injectors on their way. They're going to be here this afternoon, so we'll get our baseline, and then we'll put those 24-pound injectors in. Actually, you know what? One of you guys sent me a tune for basically the same setup with 19-pound injectors, but 93 octanes. So I can't just put it in the car and run that tune. We don't have 93 octane out here in the great state of Arizona. Well, at least in the Phoenix area, we got 91. So I'm going to compare it on the tables, and we'll see what it looks like from there. And then we will get another time with that tune compared to the self-learn tune that's in the Terminator X. And then we'll switch over to the 24-pound injectors and see what we get with that on that time. So it's going to be a good day, fun day, another day of pulling the intake plenum off of this thing. Seems like every episode, but we're getting it down to a science now, and we should just have stock in the gaskets for this thing. But it's neither here nor there. Check me out after the intro. Okay, so let's get this thing warmed up, and while this thing is warming up, I got some things to show you on the Bronco. Alright, does anybody else's car shock the ever-living crap out of them every single time they get out of the car? Literally every time. Touch the rocker panel, electrocuted. Okay, so with the Bronco, this guy, as you can see, is pretty dusty, and there's still no engine in it. I'm waiting on the pistons. Pistons are taking forever. Also L&L, I'm still waiting for my parts. Anywho, this thing's been sitting a while, but I did get all the gaskets and weather stripping and seals for this thing, so I got it all put in. Let's check it out. Oh yeah, look at that. Nice. It's all in, good to go. Door closes great. I also put the seals in for the top, pulled the top back, put the seals in, put some new hardware in. So the top is now securely bolted into the Bronco for the first time in probably its entire life. Seals are all on that side as well. The only thing I could not get was this strip on the inside and outside, as well as the weather stripping that goes inside the tailgate. They did have the strip in the top around, but nothing with the tailgate. I don't know what that's all about and where I could find that. If you guys got some suggestions to find those seals, let me know, because I need them. You can see daylight between the tailgate and the bed. And if anybody on here has ever done any off-roading and traveled down a dirt road at any speed, they know that the back of the vehicle swirls. And if there's no seals back there, oh my God, it's just gonna be, well, dusty. Anywho, that's the Bronco, and that's the update on the Bronco. As soon as the parts get here for the engine, we'll do that. All right, seems sufficiently warmed up. So I actually went out, and when I ordered my Draggy, I ordered it with a window mount. They are magnetic, so you can stick them on the car wherever, but I wouldn't necessarily trust that. Got this, I can change it out between any vehicle I want, and it just sits down in there, magnetic-like, and stays put. Slap that on the window. Make sure it's pointing all the satellites and stars and spaceships and everything else like that. Open the app and let her rip. So I've been striking out a little bit on this intake manifold gasket. Not sure why, but nobody seems to have it. I've been driving around for a little bit. So let's go try our old friends over here at Napa, see what they got. So far this Draggy is pretty cool. Resets on its own every time you come to 0. It's kind of difficult to find a spot to get a 0 to 60, obviously, because we're down here in Mexico. But it tallies and it'll keep track, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner, of your times and stuff like that. And so I'm cruising around this parking lot and got this massively fast time of 6 seconds for my 60 foot. But the other problem we got out here is that, well, it's dusty and traction is not altogether abundant, as one would say. So that's kind of difficult at times, but not too difficult all the time. Come to a stop, resets. Oh yeah. As you can see, it lists all the times down there on the bottom. Going through that giant pothole didn't really help the 60 foot time, and obviously the 0 to 60 is not so accurate given the 4 seconds I spent rolling around the corner, but you get the point, and it's a really cool system. So, and it's still counting. It'll go all the way up to 1 mile, and then it'll reset. But we're gonna swing over here to Napa and see what we can find. Well, per the usual, Napa had what he needed. So now we got gasket, can head on back. First we'll stop in Mexico, get that 0 to 60. Oh yeah, low life. Dragging the bottom. There's little to no traction at all in here. We'll see what we get. Get the traction. Just can't do it. I mean, still better than it was with the other Mercuries, the G60s, and the A9L. Couldn't get traction with that either, but this car is just, everything is down low, and so trying to get it off the line and get it moving, it's hard. It's hard getting traction as well. I think most of what we're gonna probably have to do is maybe like 30 to 60 rolls or something like that to see if there's an improvement that way. It's hard to tell, but we got somewhat of a baseline. I'll see if I can get a better baseline in another spot. I don't know. It's probably going to be the 30 to 60, some sort of roll. Give us some sort of idea. Just cannot get traction. All right, let's look through this and see what we've got. So 0 to 30 was 3.45 on the last one, and then 0 to 60, 7.29. That is a difference of 3.84. So maybe I was out of the throttle before I made the actual 0 to 60. Shouldn't be longer than the 0 to 30, especially if I was spinning. So, interesting on that one. Let's see what we got previous to that. Previous to that was 2.86 seconds for 0 to 30 and 6.99 for 0 to 60. That is a difference of 4.13. Again, maybe out of the throttle. Math ain't mathin' on that one. Interesting. Well. All right, so here is the run. So this is what we're looking at. 0 to 10 mile an hour. 1.25. 0 to 60, 6.3. What? Don't make no sense. So we got up to a half a G, and then the shift, and then across. So it looks like did right before 60 mile an hour, let off again for the third gear. But I was climbing. I was like 6,500 RPM. I really don't want to go more than that. So we'll see. I don't know. It's really, really hard to tell when it's spinning the majority of the time. As you can see, the first looks like about 10 mile an hour or so is just spinning, and then it's kind of on and off as I'm getting through it. And yeah, there's a shift, a spin, acceleration, blah, 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 on and on. It's going to be difficult to get like an actual time. It's weird the top end 30 to 60 is much longer than the 0 to 30, but there's two shifts in between, and I think is the biggest problem. Okay, so we're back. Now we need to throw in this fuel pressure sensor. This is the Holley 0 to 100 PSI. It's also got the Schrader adapter, and that is going to go on that Schrader valve right there, plug into that guy. So we'll get this, put some sealant on the sensor to the Schrader valve adapter, and then screw it on, and it'll go right down in there, and we'll plug in the sensor. Then we'll start messing with that tune that was sent over by, his name is Michael. So we'll check that out and see what he's got. I've looked it over. They're pretty much the same as far as the way it's set up, except for the fuel tables are way different, and it's commanding a much leaner run. So we'll see what it looks like. I got 91 octane in it right now. It should do all right. The timing isn't terribly different, so we'll check it out. And just like that, installed. All right, let's grab the laptop. Okay, so I applied the learning that it has currently and saved it to the base table for what is currently in the car. That way I don't lose a progress and stuff like that. So that is saved, and now I'm going to upload the tune and see what the difference is, and we'll drive it around and see what it feels like and how it runs. All right, so there's some changes here. Not a whole lot of difference in this portion here. It's mostly in the fuel table. The park change is a little bit different. Idle speed is down. They've got it at 750. We'll see if we can manage that. We might have to mess with the throttle blade and see if it'll tolerate it. The other big change is with the fuel and the target air fuel. So this is pretty different from what we got currently. So we're pretty fat in some areas. We'll see what all this does and how it looks. All right, send it over to the ECU. Should be reading the fuel pressure now. Shows 21 pounds. So it's working. Let's start her up, see what it does. gonna go take a look at things out here, make sure we're not leaking any fuel, and then we'll come back in. All right, so I've copied over the fuel tables and the timing tables and left out some other stuff. I put the spark in, stuff like that, and I left out certain things. The tune itself isn't compatible with my Terminator X module or the screen for whatever reason. It needs an update or something like that, but I sent it over, and so now we're target idle is like 775, somewhere around there. So let's take a listen to it and see how it is. Sounds pretty good. Now let's go see how it drives. Did a couple more pulls, realized the camera wasn't on, so you guys missed out on that. I'm sorry. What? But what I found out was that there's pretty much nothing I can do to roll into the 30. It just does not get traction at all. So that's kind of moot point. It picked up a little bit, 30 to 60. But we'll have to look at the data and see exactly what it shows. I think we just maybe maxed out on injector, so it's not pulling as much, or maxed out on the fuel pump. So we'll take a look at the logging and see what we got on there. Last one we got 6.89 for the 60 mile an hour, and it seems to run a lot better with this tune. Just a little bit worried about the timing is the only concern for me, and I could do with the idle coming up just a little bit, because it sits here and kind of surges a little bit with this idle. But it's snappy. And that previous one showed the 8th mile at 9.7, which I think is not great. But to be expected. I think it's kind of in the realm of this era. I think the best I got out of my GT on the 8th mile track with the GT40 tubular upper intake and lower manifold and so on and so forth, long tube headers, blah 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 blah, was 9.0, I think, and it was just spinning the tires as well. So I think that's just kind of in the realm of this. Plus everything out here is dusty and it's hot, and I don't know, I'm sure there's a bunch of other excuses I could come up with, but right now my excuse is that it just won't hook. It won't do it. So it is what it is. And I think these tires are actually over pressure. I should check them. They feel hard as a rock, but Discount's pretty good about putting 45 pounds in car tires. All right, let's get it back to the house and look over some of the data. Sorry if this is, again, if this is going to be super hard to see. At the top of the pole here, it is commanding 12.68. It's getting 12.58 for the air-fuel ratio. Fuel flow, we got 39 psi of fuel pressure. That was at wide open throttle. The pressure's not falling off, so as far as I can tell anyways. Yeah, fuel pressure is not falling off. It's staying right at 39 all the way across the entire pole. So we could get a fuel regulator, we could turn it up and then see if that starts to drop off. But right now it is staying right where it is commanded to be, and we're not losing any fuel pressure. All right, let's see where the injectors are. Okay, let's take a look here. In this first full pull we had here, we had a jump in duty cycle. Interesting. Since we changed the AFR with this new tune to 14, the duty cycle isn't going above 60 on this one anyways. Let's see what the other one looks like. That was more of a substantial pull all the way through several gears. Okay, here, duty cycle max 101.3. Okay, this is looking a little more like it. And fuel pressure is dipping after and in between the shifts here, here, and here, but it goes back to 39 each time. So the fuel pressure is not diving off at full throttle, but the injector duty cycle is just jumping all the way up. Okay, so it's still an injector issue. So we'll go through and I'm going to park this, let it cool down, and then we will get back at it in the morning when it's cooled down and throw those 24-pound injectors in. As far as the draggy numbers, let's take a look at those guys. So for that one, we're looking at the pulls are similar. Dropped on the 0 to 10, 1.1 seconds. It's just, I'm telling you, it's hard to get out of the hole with this thing. It just wants to spin, but it really takes the wind out of the sails for the 0 to 60 to get a real number on it. And so, I mean, we'll just keep playing with this, and this is gonna be our baseline, so we'll have a good idea if we're pulling up on the top end of it. So 6.89, I believe so far, that is our best. I think we dropped a tenth. I'll have to look back at it, but or maybe we lost a hundredth. I can't remember. But anyways, 0 to 60, 6.89. And so we'll change those injectors, see if we can't move some fueling around, and then maybe we can pick it up once we're actually able to get the tires to the ground and start pulling through it. So once we get up into around the, looks like 15 mile an hour range, we're able to put it down and start rolling out, so we can start looking at stuff and how we go from there. So see you in the morning. Well, slap me sideways and call me Veronica. It is the next day, and this thing's nice and cooled down, so we can start swapping out these injectors. That's pretty much all we're gonna do. Take the intake plenum off the upper, swap out the injectors, and I might reroute the way the throttle cable comes in. It's kind of a hard angle. Regardless, that's basically all we're gonna do. Change out the injectors. I'm probably gonna throw the original tune back in with some changes to the AFR for idle and cruise. I didn't really like how much timing the other tune had, even though I can just change that, but I don't want to screw with all that stuff because I'm not that skilled with all the Holley beep boops and graphs and everything else. So I'm just gonna put the other tune back in. It seemed to enjoy that a little bit better. Change up the air-fuel ratio, call it a day. But the biggest thing that we're trying to figure out is these fuel injectors, is if the factory fuel system can handle it, if the duty cycle reduces, and how it drives, and if we pick up any time in that 0 to 60, we got a good enough baseline we can run off of. Without further ado, let's go ahead and start pulling this intake manifold off and changing these out. So these injectors, real quick, these are the 24-pound 4-hole EV ones picked up off of eBay or Amazon, I think, for $100 or something like that. We're gonna give them a try, see how they do. Shouldn't be much different than the 4 holes we have in it as far as impedance. I really don't know. Somebody else on here does, and they'll probably post it in the comments. But we're gonna see how it goes, and then somebody else can figure it out if it doesn't work. I've got sunshine. Half inch, half inch, half inch, half inch. Half inch. First things first, on the realist. Oh yeah, that hurt a lot, actually. Not just a little, just a whole bunch of hurt on that one. Oh yeah. You can stay there. Ow! Getting this throttle cable off of the butterfly is always the biggest pain in the... Get off there. There we go. Jeez. I always forget. I'm gonna take this cover off to get to the other bolts. Previous intake I had was the GT40 tubular. It's similar to the Lightning. And I think it's actually the same exact intake manifold, but it doesn't have this cover. All the bolts are exposed. Ooh, by the way, I'm sure you guys have been waiting on the edge of your seats for this, but received a shipping notice from L&L.
What?
Finally. So the headers and the accessory drives are on their way as we speak. Incredible news. while we got these injectors out, we're gonna take out this Y for the coolant sensor that was in for the Dakota Digital, and put back in the factory sensor just to free up some room, and then we can use it on something else if we need to use it. That way it's not dedicated to this engine for no reason at all. And I will always love you. Oh man, and my favorite vacuum line on the back of the intake manifold. Nope, sucks. Really, really sucks. Let's see if we can move it out just a little bit. Get some access to her. Frick, man. This line on the back here is about as much fun as naked wrestling a porcupine on a bed of glass. Oh, yeah. What's up? Okay. Oh, there's still something connected. I think it's PCV. Nope, something else. Oh, intake air temperature. Can't forget that little guy. This little fella. There we go. Okay. All right. Set this aside. Glad we picked up a new one. Okie dokie. Now, fuel rail and injectors. Go ahead and route this throttle cable before I forget about it and get stuck in the same position I was last time. I need it to go behind all the vacuum lines and all the harness and everything else. Be as close to the firewall as possible so that bend, that swoop, isn't all crazy like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, righty then. So as I said before, these are 19-pound 4-hole injectors from an Explorer. Originally had the wide body injectors on here, but they were not performing well. It was so rich, they were just pouring out, and I think the injector was either stuck or some other weird happenings going on, but they were just old, needed work through. And so I had a set of 17s that came off of the Mountaineer that this intake manifold came off of, and I threw them on, and I thought they were 19. They were not, and it did not run very well at all, as you can guess. So I figured out they were 17s and swapped them out for these 19s, and it ran great ever since. I can't tell you if they're more efficient or not because I don't really keep track of the mileage, but I am told that the 4 holes are more efficient. For those of you that are worried about efficiency in the Foxbody, always do yourself a favor, inspect O-rings on everything every time you mess with it, i.e. the O-rings on these fuel rails when you pop them off. Don't cry for me, Argentina. Yeah, that's a good one. Why were those so tight? I must have been angry when I put this thing back together. Probably do us good to get a adjustable fuel regulator at some point as well. You know, things cost money. Prioritize what you can. Yeah, just drain that fuel everywhere. Atta girl. Now that everything under here smells like fuel, might as well have a cigarette. No, don't do that. Oh yeah. Also, once you pull these off, this has got me a couple times before. When you pull these injectors out, O-rings don't always follow the injector. So make sure you go down and look for it. That'll be a problem. You get it all put back together, it's gonna squirt fuel everywhere. So we'll plop these out. They all look pretty clean, but I can't see the insides. Ooh, O-ring. Pretty soon we're gonna have enough parts for an entire new Foxbody build sitting around. Oh, well, short one injector. Fuel smells nice and clean, so there's that. Same goes for in the intake manifold. Make sure that there's no O-rings sitting down in there as well. They usually don't stick in the intake manifold. Not sure why, maybe it's just a bigger bore, or maybe it's a straight cut bore. I don't know, but they usually don't stick in there. We're good. Try and soak up some of this fuel. We can slap in the injectors. With the new injectors, I put just a tiny bit of oil, like break-in oil, around the O-ring itself, or assembly lube, just so it doesn't stick down in there and stay down there, and you have less chance of turning, curling, or tearing these O-rings. And then one at a time, pop them back in place. All right, now we can pull this thermostat, or not this thermostat, but these temperature sensors out. Spin this guy around. Hopefully we don't lose a ton of fluid. We'll pop in one of the other injectors just to plug the hole. Hopefully it'll spin around it. Should. We'll see. All right, there we go. Look at that crap, man. Some people's kids, man, tell you. I don't know what it is, no matter what. Fully distilled or anything. Maybe need some CLR in here. Somebody said to put some Cascade in. I don't know, that seems like a foamy mess to me. Maybe a good idea. Let me know if anybody else has done it. This is that why I was talking about. Got it from SVE when I got the Dakota Digital fans for this. It's for the temperature sensor for the Dakota Digital module in this side with the adapter. I think it also fits LS is why it's like that. And then the factory gauge goes on the other side. Kind of cool little kit. But we're throwing this back in after I clean this up, and then we'll be done with that, and I can clean up all that coolant and everything else. This Blue Monster thread sealant that comes in a brush and a can, it is exactly like anti-seize. You literally get it everywhere, all over everything. Okie doke. Throw this guy back on here. Put some lube on these O-rings as well. Pop all these guys in. All right, I'm gonna pop these clips on for the harness. Remember, 1, 2, 3, 4 passenger side, starting from the front, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 driver side, starting from the front. Don't want to screw that up. Wouldn't really make a difference if they were batch fire, but when it's individual sequence, not be good. Then I usually turn them towards each other like this with the harness, just to, it looks better with the wiring. My preference. Make sure it's all seated all the way around as well. Throw in the fuel rail bolts, not tighten them down like you're expecting them to hang the engine like the last ones were. Now that the fuel rail is back on, the injectors are covered, everything's covered, and I start scraping all this crap off the intake manifold and clean it up, and then we can vacuum out all the crap in between. All right, for those of you that know me well, I copper gasket all of this stuff because vacuum leaks suck. Is it totally necessary? Probably not, but I don't want to chase any of that crap, so it's getting sprayed anyways. Put it on here, drop that intake manifold on. That's all there is to this. It does go a specific way though. Oh, it does go this way. Oh, we will struggle with the vacuum afterwards. I want to get this seated and some of the bolts in, just so we're not messing with the gasket. Okay, we're all back together. Everything looks good. I adjusted throttle cable. Throttle blade closes all the way. That's a good thing. Sometimes they get hung up and they don't close all the way. They don't hit the throttle stop, and then you chase it. Ask me how I know. That the 24-pound injectors are in, sitting nice and pretty in there. This thing's ready to go. Let's bust out the computer and start changing up all the stuff again. Time to break out the old cord, plug it in, boot up Terminator X. So this is the fuel ratio from the tune that we pulled from the 93 octane tune that Michael sent us. And you can see that the air fuel ratio is much leaner than what's on the other one. I'll open up the other one now. We'll compare it. Okay, so here you can see the learned table from Holley, 13.5 for the idle. And then the tune is 14.39, so it's a lot leaner across the entire board here. So I kind of want to stay around the same with that, and we'll just let it figure it out. I'll lean it out on ours and let the Holly learn and see what it does from there. This is all a learning experience for me. So Holly's learning, I'm learning. Stop staring at the holes in my headliner. Focus. And so we'll figure this out, and it'll either be easy or it's not, but you know, trial and error I think is the best way to learn. Maybe not on electronics. Okay, so we'll open up the global file of our learned file and put in the new injector size. So we're going to change the engine parameters here. This is actually 39. That's what we were getting on the high end. So change this over to the Ford large blue, even though they're not the large ones. And that should give us, change this back to 39. And that gives us 22.7 pounds down here in the corner. Shows us our projected. So 22.7 pound is what we're actually using. So we will set that, and then I'm going to go into the fuel and make some changes there and we'll load this thing up. All right, now that we made all those changes, let's go ahead and load this into the car. This first startup's going to be kind of rough because we drained the fuel rail and it's got to figure out this new tune with the new injector size, so on and so forth. So we'll see how it does. But I presume it'll be pretty rough, and then we'll let it sit here and warm up and go through the whole learning process, and we'll go drive it around. It shows fuel pressure is primed up to 30, and I think we are ready to give it a go. All right, let's crank her over. Oh. Getting it figured out. There it goes. Running through a TPS auto set. I didn't do that after I messed with all the stuff. It was running super rich. Good to go. Done. All right, now let's see how it goes. Now it's reading 0. It was reading need cal. It is fat. Let it figure some things out. Oh yeah. The number 7 injector is just pumping fuel out. Just pumping it out. No bueno. I don't know what to do with that, so I'm going to go ahead and take it back out and see if I can't free it up. And I'll swap it with one of the front ones so it'll be easier to get to. Interesting. Okay. Well, that denotes why we couldn't get more than 10 for the AFR. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it is just dripping out of this injector. It's just sitting here. Nothing. Drip. And then nothing out of that one back there either. Nice. Okay. Knocked it around a little bit. We'll see if it's still stuck wide open. And go. Don't ever buy injectors off of Amazon, kids. Well, it's been a couple days. Had to step away from this guy. Not necessarily because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. It was mostly because I don't have any injectors to put in it. This whole thing started off with, can I make $49 Amazon injectors work for this car? And, you know, honestly, I had bought the 19 pounds that are in here, the 4-hole 19 pounds, I had bought off of eBay, and they worked. I'm not exactly sure how well they worked, but they worked. AFR wasn't jumping around all over the place, wasn't fouling plugs, nothing like that. So they worked. So I figured, hey, let's give it a shot with the Amazon 24 pound. And immediately failed that injector, as you saw earlier. And then I took a 19 pound, the previous 19 pound, and I put it in its place just to see if it could handle an appropriate AFR with the rest of those 24 pounds in there. And I ran it through and it ran fine. I didn't drive it necessarily that much. I just went around the block real quick and looked at the AFR, see if the table could correct for what was in here. And it could. And so it's possible. But before I even got home, I blew 2 more injectors and they got stuck open. And so I barely made it in the door. It was dumping fuel, pumping it out the cylinders when I pulled the spark plugs. So lesson learned, $49 Amazon 24 pound injectors, no go. They're not worth it. Don't do it. For 50 bucks, I figured I couldn't lose. We tried, and it didn't work. And we're actually kind of lucky we didn't hydrolock it in some instances, because there was a lot of fuel dumping in. And so that's an issue. But now what we need to do is we need to find more injectors, which I'm not going to do this time. I have to do some research, look some stuff up. I got some injectors that I think might work that I'm looking at. We'll convert to EV6 with the little adapter. It's a Ford Racing, Ford Performance? I can't remember. They keep changing. It was SVT, Ford Racing, Ford Performance. I don't know what it is anymore. It's these ones. 24 pound. And then also, I have 24 pound wide bodies here for that 460 that we're building for Private Pile. However, a couple of them are melted, and then I don't want to mix the wide bodies and these skinnies, because I'm pretty sure these skinnies are going to fail anyways, but there might be a different variations in impedance. They're all high impedance, but there may be differences, and I don't really want to mess with the computer and all that stuff, so we're not going to do that. The other option is that we get some LS1, EV1 injectors for this system. And at 40 psi for a fuel system, they can do 22 pounds ish, and that might be enough just to get us through the duty cycle. It's an option. If there's some laying around, I'm going to use them. The ones that I have here for this all aluminum LS back here are Multex, so they will not work. They're too short, different plug, yada yada. Can't use them. So I'm on the search for some new injectors for this, and hopefully we can find some good ones that are not Chinese junk off of Amazon. But while I was stewing over that, I went ahead and I put in a water heater, a tankless one. Put this bad dog in so I could wash my hands in not cold water, and also so we could wash the ponies out here in warm water, because they absolutely hate being washed in cold water. That's the project I knocked out while I was fuming at this thing. And you'd be surprised, that was actually not a bad project. I think the tankless water heater was just over 300 bucks, and the real cost was running all the conduit. I'm sure that's to code, right? Running the conduit 60 amp above the water line to the swamp cooler. I don't know. As long as it's above, it's good, right? You know what? I don't have to worry about it till I sell the house. It works for now. Also, there's a drip over there, but I'm just going to keep slathering cement on it till it stops dripping, or some JB Weld. So anyways, it was a good project, cheap-ish, and now I got hot water in the shop and I can wash my hands and to wash the horses and the dogs and everything else. So it's a good option for you guys if you got the wattage or the amperage in your box for something like that. It was only just over 300 bucks, not including the copper wire and the conduit and all that business and the sink, but it's a good option. And I thought they were going to be way more expensive than that, like way more expensive than that. It wasn't, so check it out. Might be a good option for your guys' shops. This thing is going to wait. I'm going to figure something out, and you're going to check it out in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out all the merchandise and all the previous episodes where I struggle with this thing, and we'll figure out something. Maybe there's some more cheap options that we can figure out, that's something more in the budget of the common man to put in this car rather than some $700 or $800 injectors from Excel or Holly. But in the next episode, you'll find out. Anyways, thanks for watching. As always, have fun.